Hey everyone out there, and welcome to today's Search Engine Journal webinar. It's a sunny day here in West Virginia, and we're thrilled to have you here with us. I'm joined by Garrett Margoutte of Directive Consulting, who will be sharing how to make paid social work for lead gen. So there's no doubt that paid social campaigns can help you reach your B2B audience, but it really takes skill and finesse to run those campaigns successfully. Today, Garrett's going to show us how a scalable paid social approach can help you generate qualified leads. We're going to talk through challenges that you should be aware of and also how to complement your ads with technology to drive qualified leads. So my name is Heather Campbell, and I'm going to be your moderator today. Garrett, thanks for being here with us. Before we get into some general housekeeping, tell us a little bit about you and Directive.
Yeah, so my name is Garrett Margoutte. I love sharing content with people, and I spend a decent amount of our own money here at Directive testing in a very controlled environment. We have over $1 million research and development budget, and the big thing that we've been testing and researching is paid social for software companies and B2B organizations. And it's been really, really exciting. So today we're going to walk through some of those findings and some of the campaigns you can run that we've seen work for publicly traded and mid-market organizations across the board. So really excited to chat about it.
Awesome. I come from, a PPC background, so I'm like really excited about this one. So to all of our viewers out there, if during this training presentation you have any questions or comments, please put them in the questions box at the bottom of your screen. And as you're learning and taking in this information, ask for further clarification. Chances are you're not the only one thinking about it. So at the end today of today's presentation, we're going to do a Q&A, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And we're also going to do our best to link to any resources in the questions box, but if we miss one, please use that box to ask. And so after the webinar, please stick around for a short survey. It won't take any more than 3 minutes, and this information really helps us gauge what's working for you and how we can make SEJ webinars more useful. And lastly, and most importantly, this is one of the questions we get asked the most. You will absolutely receive this recording of this presentation later today, so watch your inbox for that. And that's enough from me. Without any further delay, Garrett, it's all yours.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an awesome intro, Heather, and excited to be here. We got to do a couple of these together, and it's always fun. So, oh, look at that. It's already revolting. All right, let me share my screen again. Let's see. Cool. So, how do we make paid social work for lead generation? So we're gonna have a lot of fun diving into this. We're gonna get real deep. You're gonna get a lot of practical takeaways. But first thing we have to do is a quick poll question. So poll question is, are you a SaaS marketer actively looking for a performance agency? If you are, obviously that's important information for us. So feel free to take a second to fill it out real quick.
I know sometimes there's issues seeing the results on these, so Garrett, I'm gonna let you know that so far we got about almost 90% of people saying no.
That's okay. We still love you guys.
And so we've got 76% voted, so sharing those results. And so 86% said no.
Awesome. Well, hey, either way, we're excited to have you here today, and you're gonna get a lot of practical information. Man, it keeps beating me up over here, fam. All right, cool. So let's dive into how you can do this and drive actual qualified leads at scale for your sales org. So let's at first, before we get into the nuance, let's look at a high level what's going on in paid advertising, especially B2B and software. Okay. So in SaaS advertising, the big gap we have is search intent. Google Ads has no firmographics. So let's use my business as an example. Let's say we want to be a paid media agency and 100 people search for paid media agency. But the truth is we only want to serve SaaS companies, and we're also not the cheapest shop in town. So we want to make sure people have at least 100 employees or 25 million in funding. Google can't do that. And if you're running a lot of campaigns and you're in paid media like myself, what you'll find is when you niche, Google Ads is still relevant, it's important, but you can't really scale it because every time you open up your targeting, you dilute your lead quality, and every time you focus your lead quality, you dilute your volume. On the other hand, social has firmographics, so you can go on LinkedIn and you can sling asset downloads, right? Download the ultimate guide to B2B demand generation. But if someone downloads it and you send it to an SDR, the feedback you almost universally get is, hey, I called that lead. They're not really ready to buy right now. So you end up spending $40 to $100, and 40 is pretty good, frankly, on asset downloads to get someone who has no intent. And the problem is sales development starts to take your budget because they can buy that same lead for 75 cents from ZoomInfo, and there's no difference between the intent you got from an asset download and the intent they got from buying it directly from the data provider. And so you're at this conundrum, okay? So without intent, we struggle to drive sales qualified leads from social because no offer is strong enough to overcome not having intent. At the end of the day, if you've ever worked in sales development, what you find is the way you get more leads is not through better copy, better messaging. I wish it was the case. I've tried it for years. You usually get more leads by sending more emails. The same often goes for social. You get your MQLs up by just expanding your targeting or expanding your budget. But MQLs don't really turn into revenue. And so we're at this dilemma. And so what we're going to do today is figure out how to improve, right? If it costs $4K a year to get unlimited contact info from Seamless AI, why pay for a lead with no intent? Right? Because of this, sales is taking marketing's lunch and our budget. So this was the reality I was stuck in for years. And I've always wanted to get paid social to work because I had the targeting right there. And I knew if we could get it to work, everything else in the business and advertising could go gangbusters. And so we actually came up with this hypothesis that said, what if we gave some of our budget back to the prospect instead of the platform? Okay, so when any of us say we're going to get $10,000 for LinkedIn, what I found is we all spend $10,000 on LinkedIn. But we do that $10,000 to get an objective that occurs off of LinkedIn, which is opportunities, deals, and revenue. So what if we focused more on activation instead of acquisition? What if we focused more on getting prospects to take an action? What if we used a lot of that $10,000 for the offer instead of just the ad delivery? And that's what we did, and that's what completely changed our business and our clients. So what we did is we started to test gift cards on LinkedIn. We've been doing this for a while now. You can start to see some of the differences in spend, right? So I've given out $131,000 in $100 gift cards. You can see $72 cost per form fill, and you can see the ROI is about 3.7 million. Okay, this is like cash. So you can start to see the differences in ROI and the differences in spend. This is across very substantial amount of statistically significant data, and you can start to see where these efficiencies lie. And what the keys are. And you can see we actually have the best cost per lead at this kind of $100 gift card price point, okay? Now, for you to have the confidence to do a gift card, I found that you need to improve your financial modeling so you can make the business case that spending $100 to get someone to take a sales meeting is actually cheaper than not spending, right? So you can start to see we couldn't get anyone to a sales meeting probably like you can't right now. When I say a sales meeting, I mean in LinkedIn, scheduling a meeting via Chili Piper to meet with an SDR or an AE, okay? So what you have to do is you have to be able to validate to your board, your CMO, your executive team, whatever your role is, that spending gift cards will actually save us money. And so what I've given you today is kind of 3 of the different ways we do this for our clients and the actual models we use. So the first one is the LTV CAC sheet. So I'm going to pull that up for you. So what this does is, since I would argue if I could see your hands and I was like, how many of you got into marketing because you were really good at financial modeling and you wanted to live in Google Sheets? Most of your hands are not going to go up, okay? It's just not how we're wired. So what I wanted to do was build out a tool that you all could use, okay? And so in this tool, you'll see things like this model where I could put together like, okay, let's spend $15,000 on a channel, and then I expect to get, let's say, 120 leads and 50 demos. What would be essentially my cost per demo, my LTV CAC, and I can actually look at all my business, my AOV, my lifetime value, my ROI, my ratio, and I can start to determine if a channel is valuable. And then what I can do is I can start to build hypotheses, like what would happen if I was able to get people directly to a demo, not just to a lead, what could I spend? And you can start to calculate what your cost per demo is as long as your LTV CAC is greater than 3. So in this case, I can get 5 demos from 15K in spend and still have an LTV CAC or greater than 4, okay? So I can start to model this out. Maybe my pricing's so bad and my team doesn't realize it that I can't do any advertising because we don't have enough money left over. So I got to raise my rates or increase my gross margin. This gives you a way to bring this to life. The last thing it does that's really cool is it lets you increase your goals without essentially getting screwed. So if you've been in marketing before, this story is going to resonate with you, right? The board or management comes to you and says, hey, we need you to increase SQLs by 25%, but you're only going to get a 5% increase in budget. That's really not a great recipe for success, and you want to let them know how much money they're going to be leaving on the table if they don't give you more budget and why. And so what this will do is you can put in your quarterly goals, and it'll actually give you the increase in spend and the incremental ROI from that increase in spend, okay? So I highly encourage you to download this when you get it, play around with it, and it will drastically increase your financial acumen and your ability to run a better go-to-market strategy. Okay? So that's the LTV CAC sheet. Next is the ROI forecast. I found another kind of gap in marketers today is we're not very good at predicting the future and tying that to real hard dollars, okay? And so what I want to do is have a way of showing if I were able to increase your monthly ad spend by 2% and your monthly leads by 2%, but get your demos up by 4%, what would be the incremental ARR increase at annual recurring revenue versus doing nothing? And once again, I can use this data to tell a story, get buy-in, and predict the future, which is very, very powerful for essentially getting the budget you need, the retention you want, or whatever that is, the sale you want, whether you're an agency or an in-house marketer. Modeling out the future and demonstrating its value is really, really important. And then lastly, the last tool I'm going to give you that can help you get the gift card budget approved is this kind of budget approval sheet. So let's say for this example, and I'm just going to throw a number out there so it doesn't come across wrong. Let's say I'm working with Heather and the team over here, who I really enjoy, and they're going to say it's $20,000 for a webinar, Garrett, but we're going to guarantee you 700 leads. I could then throw that in my model, okay, where I still have all my life cycle funnel stages, and I could predict the value of me getting 700 leads from SEJ and putting that into my model, and it'll actually do a full projection. So like you'll see if I only got 600 leads from them, I'm not going to have the LTV CAC I want on the increase. Now you can see here, this is the actual one. So as long as, let's see where the cutoff is. As long as they get me, let's say in this model, 200, even less, I only need 150 leads, right around 175 probably leads for it to be worth it for me, okay? So I can model this out, and then I don't keep this, I give this to my team. So now if a team wants to propose, hey Garrett, I think we should do X, Y, and Z for our marketing, I say, sweet, can you send me the model so I can approve it on the financial side of it? Then they can model it out, I can see the financial impact it'll have, and I can say yes or no. Really, really cool tool to getting more out of your organization and your team, okay? So we got our tools in place. We've got gift cards as our offer. We financially validated that gift cards will help us. Now we got to get into the nitty gritty and the tactics of the campaign, okay? So the first thing we're going to do, and I call this customer generation. If you've been on any of my other webinars or listened to any of my content, I've developed with the team here at Directive together a new methodology for going to market. And it's kind of like ABM on steroids. And so what I don't want to use is any accounts. You'll notice, see my ABM accounts? My ABM accounts is the entire total addressable market of SaaS. So what I'm going to do in my case is I'm going to take every SaaS company with over 25 million in funding or 100 employees with X technology. Maybe they have Marketo or Pardot, 6sense, Terminus, Demandbase, whatever that is, right? Whatever tool that is. And I'm going to build that out, okay? And let's say in my case, I got 10,000 accounts. I got it from ZoomInfo, Seamless, Clearbit, Crunchbase. all the different data providers. I look it all up. What I found is when I then manually verified with our interns here at Directive over 200 hours, 50% of the accounts were not actually in our criteria. That is a mind-boggling stat. And the reason that's so important is when you're advertising on LinkedIn right now, I would argue that 50% of your targeting is incorrect, so much so that you could not work with the accounts that you think you're targeting. They would not be a good fit for your product or your services. I would argue you have 50% waste pre-impression on all your LinkedIn targeting when using industries. That is mind-boggling. We have completely got away from that. We are no longer advertising at Directive to any black box. When we run a campaign for ourselves or for our clients, we want to advertise solely upon manually verified accounts. What this does is it brings your advertising to life. It lets you report on market share because all these accounts are uploaded to Salesforce. You can run a report. You can see how many clients you've booked meetings with, how much market share you've taken. You can run connected TV because you know if you're running a TV commercial, it's only going to these accounts and these titles. You can run programmatic. You can run anything and become the greatest marketer to your creative capabilities when you're operating on manually verified data. It is an absolute game changer. And this entire methodology is customer generation. You can check it out. You can learn more on our website, but that's what's powering this entire approach, okay? So then we can separate our TAM by tier. All right, well, I would like to maybe have bigger gift cards on tier 0 accounts than I want maybe a tier 4 account or a tier 3. Hey, who do I route a tier 3 account? What if I want my best AEs to get tier 1 and tier 0 and maybe my newer AEs tier 4 and tier 3? Same with SDRs. By tiering it out, breaking out every account, you become so much more dynamic as a marketer and you partner so much better with sales because in customer generation, our goal is not necessarily lowering CPA, it's decreasing cost per opportunity. And so what it means is we get way, way better at lifecycle marketing and marketing operations, which then lowers our customer acquisition cost and lets us get far more aggressive to breaking into our total addressable market. For example, at Directive in the last 365 days, just as a data point, we have taken 60% market share across every SaaS company we've wanted to work with. We've booked meetings with 60% of them following this approach. And it has completely changed our business. We've hired over 100 people, okay? This really, really works, and it's all coming from paid social. This is the actual copy we're using. So I want you to see, you can see the spend just as at a high level example, and that's just from one campaign. And you can see here what we're running. So the copy goes 29 minutes, $105 Amazon gift card, and more importantly, performance marketing strategies you had no idea were possible. Then we're using social proof, New Relic and ZoomInfo, a couple clients. We're using bread and butter to get them into knowing what our services are, and then our call to action. Take a call. After, I'll send you a $105 e-gift card. Interested? If they say yes, great. We're gonna book a meeting. The key here, this is the most important part. I need them to do the lead gen form, but then book the actual meeting on Chili Piper. I need them to make a commitment, okay? We found we have about a 32% intro held rate if they don't book on Chili Piper. If they do book on Chili Piper, we have an over 50% intro held rate. It is the most critical part in getting people from kind of a sales accepted lead to a sales qual, like actually showing up to the meeting, okay? This is a really important part. And then what we want is a bridge if people aren't ready. So if we're running this campaign and they say no, what we want is a bridge, something that if they're not ready for purchase intent and they're at informational intent, how do I bridge informational intent and purchase intent? We do that through our Slack group, it's totally free, called Directive Society. For your business, it might be a free plan, it might be a tool, it might be something though that creates bi-directional. In other words, they start to actually experience your product or your service, your brand in some way. What it's not is like read this guide. When you give someone an asset to read, it's a one-directional relationship, and I don't believe it does as much for your brand. So when I'm doing something here, I want to create a bi-directional relationship so they get to experience our brand, okay? And then I want to break it into personas. I don't want to just deliver gift cards to every SaaS marketer. I want to deliver gift cards to every type of SaaS marketer, director of demand gen, VP, CMO, and I need different amounts. In other words, I can't really get CMOs to a meeting with a $100 gift card, but I can with an over $300 gift card, for example, or an over $250 gift card. So I want to be able to break out my ideal customer personas and then deliver the types of offers that'll get them from apathy to action and into where I want in my funnel. You can also start to understand how good your targeting is, because I found there's a lot of gaps, and LinkedIn's not perfect, and they kind of default to more expansive targeting than more narrow targeting. And so what you can use is the pixel to get an understanding of your demographic report and then make sure you're talking to the right people. In this case, we found that our client thought that the IT department, the engineering department, bought the software. So they were actually advertising most of their budget to an audience that was different than they thought. And so in other words, they did not think some of these audiences were their right audiences. And by using the pixel, we were able to bring their audience to life and then narrow down their targeting and help them understand who is actually taking the actions they wanted. And so I highly recommend you check out the pixel to get this data. It's really cool. Now, what gets exciting is we've got our conversation ads. Now, the thing about conversation ads, you can only deliver one ad. Anyone in the world can only deliver one ad to one human a month. In other words, if Susan, the CMO at a SaaS company, gets delivered an ad by me, you can't also deliver an ad to Susan in the same 30-day period, okay? So a lot of times in your convo ads, you're gonna see bids as low as 30 to 50 cents. We are advertising minimum $5 up to $10 per bid, because what we wanna make sure is that our ads get delivered to that person above any other brand out there, okay? So we have to get aggressive. Now, when you wanna scale, the next default is, okay, we've proven it out with conversation ads. Could we scale gift cards to sponsored content? And the answer is yes. Most of our budget actually ends up on sponsored content because it's more expensive and it's more expansive. You can get your audience better there. Now, the problem with sponsored content is it's expensive. And the audience on LinkedIn is not as engaged as Facebook's, because you get Instagram, you get Facebook, you get all these channels that people have higher utilization rates of the actual social channel than LinkedIn. In other words, LinkedIn's audience might say it has 1,000 people, but if you take that same audience, and what I want you to do is go into LinkedIn Sales Navigator and you can look at people who posted recently, you'll find that almost only 60% of that audience has posted recently, okay? So your audience sizes are actually much smaller than you think on LinkedIn. And so we wanted to create scale by going to Facebook. Now, the problem with Facebook, as we know, is it's hard to target, especially if you're B2B. So what we did is we used a tool called Clearbit X. And what Clearbit X lets us do, which is Clearbit's advertising software, is bring LinkedIn level data over to Facebook and start to get way more dynamic and scalable with our paid social, okay? So you'll see I could target marketing directors in the US or in B2B SaaS that are using Salesforce, let's say. Now, the problem is their platform is good, but it has duping issues with tagging. And so a lot of times, for example, a agency like Directive, because we service SaaS, could get tagged as SaaS. So you have a lot of agencies in SaaS. So we want to use exclusions. So what you do is you click on a company's details and you can see the types of tags they have. And so you might have a lot of waste, maybe your first month of running Clearbit. But if you go through every lead you generate, go through their tags, you can start to identify all the wrong types of tags, and you can constantly filter this almost like a negative keyword list. You can create a negative tag list, and this is where you're going to get that focus and that accuracy out of the platform, okay? And then we like to use the technology targeting Clearbit has, and they do this actually quite well, to then create better filters around what types of technology makes someone have a higher, let's say, digital maturity. I know a customer that has Marketo is is more mature than a client who doesn't have a marketing automation tool. And I know mature clients are more likely to afford our retainer and hire us than non-mature clients. And so that's just one example. I also know clients that are using Demandbase, 6sense, Engagio, and other niche tools also, once again, have a more developed team and are more likely to be a good fit for us. So I'm leveraging these filters to build out my ideal customer persona. And then creative is everything. Facebook's different than a lot of other channels in B2B. It's not like Google Ads where you can keep your same landing page, because every net new user is theoretically a net new searcher. So your creative doesn't just evaporate. It doesn't become irrelevant. Facebook and Instagram is different, right? You have frequency capping. You're delivering impressions. You have to constantly deliver new creative. And so this is just an example how we do it. And we're constantly testing. Okay. And then one of my favorite parts is the retargeting can get so much better. Because one of the biggest problems in SaaS is not being able to filter with firmographics on your retargeting. Because not everyone, like the problem with, let's say SaaS, is someone goes to your pricing page and you want to retarget everyone who goes to your pricing page. But if you don't layer that with firmographics, you create a lot of waste because you don't know which people went to your pricing page but could never afford you. And so what we can do now is using this firmographics, we can actually start to enrich our retargeting and then only go after the certain types of buyers who fit our targeting and get way more efficient with our spend. So just as an example, since testing this, we have a 63% lower cost per opportunity than LinkedIn sponsored content, 341% in ROI, and over 5 million in pipeline revenue. So Facebook totally works, and I really do recommend that you check it out. I think it's quite powerful for your business. Okay? So thank you. In closing, here's how I want you to think about doing paid social for B2B. Step one, we need to build out our total addressable market, and we need to manually verify every account. Step two, we need to create an offer that's so good that we can get someone to actually book a sales meeting in platform. Step three, we need financial modeling so we can prove out that we can afford the offer and that the offer actually saves us money by improving our life cycle and stage percentages, and our activation is more important than focusing. Like the biggest mistakes people make in B2B advertising is they focus on decreasing CPA instead of increasing activation rates, people going from MQL to SQL or SQL to op or op to deal, okay? And then lastly, we need really good creative that stands out. So hopefully this helped, and I'm open to take any questions you all have. So thanks, everybody.
Hey, Garrett, awesome. That was good stuff. I personally love the deck. The deck itself made it.
Awesome. Well, I'll let Sophia know. She's one of our designers. She's phenomenal. So I'll let her know.
Awesome. So we do have some questions, and we'll be here, for another half hour if we've got time. So, keep those questions coming in. The first one comes from Shakti. There are many shining lucrative offers online. How can you trust, the user, the prospect that you're sending this to, trust that your offer is legitimate and that nothing is concealed in the web page?
Because we're a big brand, I guess, in the space. I don't know. We just work with good clients. I wouldn't worry about that kind of stuff, to be honest. I think it's a distraction. I understand the concern. I think a lot of us, how do I know I'm not just giving all these gift cards away? How do I know all this stuff? The truth is your sales org is going to need to reorg itself if you get better at this, because most sales orgs are good at giving demos to people who've already said they want a demo. What they're not good at is actually selling. And I know that happened to us. It took us 6 months to monetize these campaigns because we went from doing 3 to 5 leads a day. We get up to 30 qualified leads from our total addressable market a day now. Okay, this is completely changed our entire sales org, marketing org, everything. And so when you get that type of scale, what you have to do is you have to get better at the life cycle management. Now, if you've seen some of my other presentations, some of the stuff we're doing is we're getting people to take the meeting because of the gift card, but we want them to show up to the meeting because they're excited about Directive. And so we have to do like this psychological and emotional switch. In other words, the gift card is the incentive, but directive is the offer. And so after they book that meeting with Chili Piper, the first thing we do is we hit them with a hype video. And the video shows the case studies and the success of all our clients, the IPOs they're having, the record-breaking quarters they're having. And we want to start to show them that we are a legit agency, that this isn't just, we're not slinging gift cards to any and everyone. We chose you. You're a part of our audience. We want to work with you. And here's the success other people who worked with us had. And when we do that, we have much higher attendance rates, and we have a lot less people that are kind of gaming the system.
So we got an answer or a question from Chrissy. We are a small almond cookie and almond pie crust manufacturer. It's lunchtime, Chrissy, you're making me hungry. We have been running various Google ads and Facebook, Instagram ads, but our costs are still higher than sales. What would you recommend for a small B2C with limited marketing funds?
Well, yeah, so I guess I would first decide who I'm selling to, and I would start to say no to everyone else. The reason Directive grew is I'm only targeting software companies. I used to be B2B. Well, that means I had to dilute my messaging so I could resonate with manufacturers as well as other people. So I would try to focus your audience of your small B2C organization so much that you could hone your value prop, your pricing, your experience, your targeting, your budget into this one ideal customer that you can go far with. And I would argue we are irrationally afraid of niching, and niches are far greater markets with far greater revenue potential than I think we give credit. So I would probably say, if I looked at your campaigns, your offer probably isn't strong enough, and it's not because you don't want it to be, but because your persona isn't focused enough. So I would really focus into who you're marketing to and why they should use your product over everyone else. And if you master those two things, I've found paid social tends to work quite a bit better.
Yeah, I would second that. Noble has a question. Speaking of retargeting, how do you calculate CPA when you have a retargeting campaign being fueled by an awareness campaign plus website visits?
Wow, I'm a little lost. Can you do that again, Heather?
How do you calculate CPA when you have a retargeting campaign being fueled by an awareness campaign plus website visits?
Oh, yeah, I mean, so I think the reason the question got me confused is because I guess I would look at it from the other angle, which is, how do I calculate CPA? Like, I think you should look at more of a blended CAC. So I think if you try to make every channel profitable, you make every channel less profitable, to be honest. I think one of the biggest problems with advertising today is that we've bastardized brand and we're terrified to spend on it, because when we look at our brand campaigns, we know it's not turning into SQLs, and so we pause it. But then your blended CAC goes up, because if you can be using programmatic, let's say video campaigns, to tag users, and let's call it prospecting. It's kind of like the B2C world, right? So if you're advertising D2C, what you do is you do prospecting, impressions, low cost per impression, and then you retarget to people based off of their engagement. And then that's how you get a much lower blended CAC. In B2B, you can actually do something very similar. So I would try to look at more of a blended CAC as well as a channel CAC, but there's some channels that, like, let's say programmatic or prospecting or video, that you're trying to do as part of a more comprehensive strategy. And so you should be focused more on a blended CPA across multiple channels, in my opinion, while still managing the CPA of your direct response channels, and then looking about the impact of brand at a blended CPA level.
Correct. Here's a good question from Daniel. What's your experience with qualifying leads for SaaS through chatbots?
Yeah, I mean, chatbots are cool. I think the question should be, do your customers like to engage with your brand via chat? And if the answer is yes, then let's let them do that. I think the company who does this the best is called Genesis. They're a contact center solution. I don't know if they want me calling them that. I forget their category. But I got to interview their CMO, I believe. Yeah, I believe it was CMO. And they do a really phenomenal job of kind of like choose your own adventure of how you can buy from them. And I think more people should follow that approach. So if you're looking at someone, for example, who does chatbot well, check out Genesis. If you're looking at someone who does like build your own pricing package, check out Genesis. Get a demo. Like Genesis has like 4 different ways to buy from them, and I think it's quite clever. And it's something I call being customer led instead of being product led. And it's not that being product led is intrinsically bad, it's that your product isn't for everyone. And so we want to take a product and then make that product customer led so that it becomes more nuanced and resonates better with your ideal customer. And I think Genesis does a phenomenal job of being flexible to what their customer wants. So check them out, because yeah, I do think you can qualify people via chat, but I think not everyone wants to do chat just as much as not everyone wants to do a form or to hop on a call. And I think Genesis does a good way of making themselves customer centric.
Yeah, that's a great point, having multiple outlets or multiple ways that they can contact you. So Jonathan's question is, on LinkedIn, you showed an example of confirming that person you reached out is the right point of contact. How do you do that on Facebook? Click to messenger ads?
Well, yeah. So I mean, I'm not confirming in platform that they're the right person. So there's actually no difference there. I'm confirming pre-delivery that they're the right organization, and then I'm trusting the title level targeting, which is not perfect, that I can get to the right person. So I'm not mapping out individuals, and if I do map out all the individuals, but I can't always match them to a cookie, even if I'm using something like a LiveRamp. So what I'm mostly doing is I'm manually verifying accounts and then reaching the right audience via title targeting. And I've found that level of targeting to be far more accurate and functional in the B2B world than industry level targeting in the paid social channels.
Great. So Joseph's question is, I know it's dependent on the CPL and audience size, but just ballparking, what would you say is the minimum amount of daily or monthly spend needed on LinkedIn to be successful with this strategy?
Yeah, Tim, are you on here actually? Is Tim on here, Heather?
He should be. I think he's still here. Tim, you can join us.
That might be above my pay grade. Tim, I think is going to have a more, I don't want to have the wrong answer. That's much more in the weeds than I live.
Hey, Tim.
Hi. Yeah, so it really does depend because so say you want to do like a target account approach, like we're talking about, it's going to depend on the audience size, right? So if you're targeting enterprise accounts, you might only need 300, 400 accounts there, but the cost is going to be higher. The answer, unfortunately, is it depends on your audience, because if you're targeting the CMO at Nike, that cost is going to be a lot higher because there's a lot of other companies targeting them, and the cost per click is just going to be higher from that. I would start with, I guess just a good ballpark to start at is like a 5K test budget, and then you can kind of see from there, because it really does depend on your audience size, who you're targeting, your persona, all those things, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I would limit industries. So I think one of the biggest mistakes I see is that people are like, well, I'm going to target financial services and hospitality or something. But we want the CTOs as well as the directors of like they test too many things. So I would encourage you, like for me, when I tested this, it was only director of demand gens at SaaS companies, 100 to 250 employees. I knew that was my sweet spot. So go look at your chart of accounts, go look at your profit and loss statement, and go look at your client list and say, who are my most profitable clients from one niche with one title, and then spend 5K on them. The biggest mistake I see from advertisers today, and I wish you all could laugh if you heard this, but I can't tell you how many clients come to us with like a 10K budget across like 46 personas, 14 countries, and 36 industries, and it's impossible. Like I'm talking like literally every day, marketers are so scared to leave any money on the table that they end up with no money on the table. And I would just highly encourage you to focus if you want to test it, and start with as tight of a focus with your best, most profitable customer, and then go from there.
I think that's a really good advice. So Maggie has a question. Does the strategy shared with us still apply when expanding to LinkedIn's audience network? the B2B audience we target isn't really active on LinkedIn. So our ads are seen through the audience network and they don't really convert.
Yo, Tim, who's on the audience network? Where does that even go? Is it like GDN? I don't advertise on it. I don't trust it. Yeah, I would imagine it's not working for you. Yeah, I would not.
We've tested it. The cost per click is gonna be lower, but the quality is very bad. I would stay away from it, in my opinion.
Agreed. We never used it for campaigns that I've ran before. We never had really good success with it.
I've never seen any platform who gives me that, like, hey, can we take more of your money option? You know, that little button. I've never clicked it and not regretted it. So yeah, I don't have any great data there, but I would not, like, whether it's Google, programmatic, Facebook, whatever it is, like, don't click that little button. It's the trick.
All right, so we have a question from Caroline. She's asking, are there similar tools like in HubSpot that she could do something like this? So you mentioned Marketo, Chili Pepper, are there tools within other platforms?
Yeah, so there are. We started on Calendly, then we tried to use HubSpot. We ended up on Chili Pepper for a reason. The issue with those other tools is they don't do calendar level capping for shared events. So if you're like with us, it works. Like genuinely, this will work for you, okay? Well, let's say you have 2 SDRs and they each have a capacity of 10 intro calls a day. By the way, that's how we set it up. Nobody does more than 10 intro calls a day. So if I have 20 calls, I need 2 SDRs and they're gonna get sick, they're gonna have cancellations, they have other things. So if I have 20 calls, I probably need 3 SDRs, okay? If I wanna be at that level of capacity. Now the problem is I have a capacity for 30 calls. Now each individual only has a capacity for 10. If I do it on Calendly or HubSpot, what they don't let me do is cap the individuals. So poor Susan is gonna wake up on a Tuesday with all 30 calls, and then Mikey and Sarah have no calls, and it just turns into a disaster. They also don't do as good of a job, in my opinion, of getting straight from the form fill to the calendar book in real time. And so Chili Pepper has some pretty good tech there. And then the lead routing and Salesforce integration is just exponentially better. And that's why we used it. I love HubSpot. I'm on that same tech stack. So I'm on HubSpot, Salesforce, Chili Pepper, and Sendoso, who's actually a client of ours as well, but to deliver the gift cards. But yeah, I mean, I love HubSpot. The attribution from HubSpot's great. We're using First Touch attribution from there to kind of use this for our LTV CAC model that I showed you. But yeah, you can start with Calendly or HubSpot, but if you get past maybe 10 leads a day that you're trying to route, you might want to upgrade to Chili Pepper, in my opinion.
Awesome. Well, that's all the questions that we have for right now. Garrett, before we let you go, is there anything that you want to kind of dive into a little bit deeper? We got some time. It's up to you.
No, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the key to all of this is getting that data right, getting the account list right. The problem with ABM and why it hasn't worked well enough is it's too small of a list. And because it's too small of a list, it's hard to, in a short amount of time, get the timing right. Because timing is codependent on volume. So the fewer accounts you have, the less likely it is. So if I'm only selling into 100 accounts, the less likely it is that in the month of November, 10 of those 100 want an agency. Now, every time I grow that audience, the likelihood of the timing being right goes up. So what we want to do is we want to have the benefits of the focus of ABM with the scale of demand generation. And to solve those two things, we created our own methodology called customer generation that kind of takes the best of ABM and demand gen and allows you to start driving SQLs instead of MQLs and be a real revenue contributor to the organization, whether it's paid social, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Google Ads, whatever that is. So no, I mean, at the end of the day, that's our approach. If you want to learn more, hop on Society. It's totally free. You can DM me, you can DM Tim. I mean, Tim just did like the most killer breakdown of like Terminus versus 6 Sense, and he's starting to experiment with metadata. So if you want to get like real level insights from people working on the biggest SaaS companies in the world, free of charge, like the SaaS marketers, we have over 1,000 people in it. It's a really good group. So highly recommend you check it out. And if you want to hire us, fill out a form, talk with the team, see if there's not a better way to do what you're doing or a new methodology that might help you get over the hump of high CPLs on paid social, getting your butt kicked on asset downloads, and not really being able to monetize the channel. Because that happened to me for like 5 years, and I finally got a breakthrough when I did it this way. So highly recommend you talk with us and learn more about our services.
Awesome. So Lindsay, before we go, and I'm gonna let you go, Garrett, but Lindsay says that this was all capital letters, phenomenal, and Garrett is the GOAT. So
Oh, thank you.
Killed it, killed it. We got a couple other
Thanks, everybody.
questions from Maggie and Christoph, but I'll tell you what, we'll get those. Oh, and Adam and Noah. So we'll get those to you guys. We'll get those
I
to
can do
Garrett
one
and the
question.
team to follow.
I can
Do you
one
want to take
question.
them?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll help everybody out. Let's do it.
So Maggie wants to know, do you use any tools to obtain the emails for your ABM campaigns?
Yeah. So those are all coming from Seamless, ZoomInfo, Crunchbase, etc. But then we still have to match them to a pixel. So you can't just unless I'm missing something, Tim, we can't just go advertise those emails. We got to actually enrich them for the most part, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can, right? You can upload those emails to LinkedIn, but the match rate is like 30%. So it's really tough when you just do it that way.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll upload them to LiveRamp and then try to upload them from there, and we have a much higher match rate, if that makes sense.
Perfect. So Christoph, it's funny, all these questions coming in now that we're signing up. So Christoph asks, how do you calculate CAC for companies when using an agency? Do you just use CAC for paid media? What about organic leads?
Yeah, so when I'm doing it, I include my agency fee. So if you go look at the ROI forecast, you can see the agency fee included there. If you look at the LTV CAC, you can see team cost included there. So I am taking into account all those things, and then you can be as judicious as you want. So when I look at it, I'm actually counting my SDRs and my AEs because I can't monetize the lead without them. So to act like you got the lead without them is frankly inaccurate when it goes back to your P&L. In other words, when you go work with finance, what you're going to find is you have diminishing marginal returns. Like if you think you have an LTV of CAC of 3, but you're not including your sales org, and you need them to get the lifetime value, then you have to count them on the CAC. In other words, you can't use the sales org for the AOV, but not count them on the customer acquisition cost. So I think our marketing team made that mistake for a little bit. And I was like, wait a second, I don't think we actually have the LTV CAC. We think we do. And that's important because that then changes how much money you have to leverage on your offer, how much money you have to spend in platform for a lead, right? So I would encourage your acquisition costs to reflect all the costs, direct and indirect, to monetize the lead you received. So for us, for you, it might be we count our technology. So Chili Piper is a cost, the marketing org is a cost, the spend is a cost, the gift card, the offer is a cost, the SDR is a cost, the AE is a cost. I'm not doing fractional costs like director of SEO hopping on to sell them, but I am doing direct kind of costs related with that new biz organization to get a much more accurate number.
Yeah, because when you're not selling a good, you're not selling a printer, you don't have necessarily the traditional manufacturing cost of goods sold. So you have to look at all your resources.
No, you count that because your gross margin is going into your LTV. So your cost of goods sold is affecting your lifetime value, which is then setting the ceiling for that 3-to-1 ratio on your acquisition cost. So we actually are calculating the entire business from price to average order value to retention rate, as well as gross margin. And so that's actually giving us a really accurate understanding of exactly how much this is costing. Now, the cool part about SaaS is they have higher gross margins than production, right? Where you have to actually manufacture it.
That's, yeah. Exactly. So let's see. Okay, so here's one from Joseph. How do you deal with retargeting issues presented by the iOS 14 on Facebook and eventually other platforms when doing cross-platform retargeting, trying to get those emails onto pixels?
I don't know. It's beating my butt too. I don't do B2C, so I haven't focused a ton of effort on it. But yeah, I don't know what to say. I don't have a magic solution there. I wish I did. I think we just lose 50% of our data on certain audiences, I'm sure. I mean, I have clients who complain about that too because they sell to developers, and a lot of developers are using secure browsers. So like a lot, like in general, honestly, I'm kind of actually glad. I know a lot of people aren't. I actually like the fact that we're losing a lot of our tracking, because our tracking isn't that good to begin with. If we all actually pause for a second and get honest, like we don't really understand how people buy from our organizations just because I can run an attribution report in HubSpot. It's not the best story just because you got Visible or whatever, Caliber Mind or whatever you're using. Like the truth is like your brand matters a hell of a lot more than you think it does, and you're not spending enough there. And I can say that to anyone and be accurate. And so I'm actually kind of excited for us to lose a little bit of tracking, because I think we need to go back to being marketers who care about the psychology of the message we articulate, the emotions we evoke, the way we articulate our brand to our audience, even if we can't track it. Like what you can do is you can put your spend, and then you can go look at your revenue, and then you can do a T12 analysis trailing 12 months. Like there's so many ways. I think in-platform data is actually like the worst thing that's happened to performance marketers, like genuinely. I think we've become so obsessed with our tactics that we've lost our positioning skills, our messaging skills, our methodology for how we go to market, and our creative, like all the things of marketing. I feel like we actually got worse at over the last 10 years because we got better at tracking, and everything had to be trackable instead of everything had to be creative, resonate, and impact our audience. So I'm actually kind of excited about it because I think it'll make us better as an industry.
I don't disagree with that. And you guys definitely put out some creative pieces. So, you know, I would encourage you all to go and follow Directive on social. She says, Darcy is saying, I want to make a SaaS just to use Directive services now. So, you know, I would say look at expanding into other places, but we don't want to. We want to keep you niche, right? Yeah, so with that, I will say that I do believe that's all the questions that we have for today. So for Adam and a couple of the other people who mentioned, they were looking for the name of that group again. If you can say that, we'll make sure it's also in the follow-up.
Directive Society. So it's in the top bar of our menu. So if you just go to our website, you should be able to find it there, unless they're promoting the live show or this webinar, but or it's in our footer. But go to Society, check us out. Like we are genuinely active there. It's a very active group, and you can DM any of us. So love to help in any way possible, and hopefully you can be a part of our community.
Fantastic. With that, we're gonna let you guys go. Garrett, always a pleasure. Tim, thanks for joining us today. We'll see you guys later.